Hey, yo, Mo. OGTV 45 tapping in. You know the motto, no long drawn out intros. We get right to it around here. Okay, now, I got to talk about this cocaine kingpin Peter Shue interview that I saw on Johnny Mitchell. For those of you who don't know, Johnny Mitchell is the guy who did the Pistol Pete interview that drove the internet crazy a few weeks ago. So I run across yesterday this interview he did with Peter Shue. And I got to talk about this unique experience I had of encountering Peter Shue and actually knowing him for a couple of years and having no idea whatsoever that Peter Shue sold drugs or was a kingpin, let alone was a kingpin. I didn't even know the guy sold drugs.
I was young and small, and guys were so big. Even when I had to go out there and fight the guys that mess with my sisters, bother them. They was 2 years older than me, 3 years older than me, 4 years older than me. So I took a lot of L's. So and that's how you learn. A loss is a lesson.
Right.
So I come home and there's one time this guy I had to fight over my sister. I came home and I told my father, what happened. So he said, my father was real like strict. He wanted you to man up. So he said, what happened? And I said, well, the guy had a good laughter. He threw the hookah, well, he said, well, go out and do this, So the next day I go out there, fight the dude again, and he whipped me again. So I came home, I'm bruised up. He said, what happened? I said, the guy's too big, he's short. So he said, well, you told me what to do. He had told me kick him in the nuts and do all. So I went back out there and fought him again. And he beat me again. So I came home and he said, so my father's like, so what happened this time? I said, what do you think happened? I just lost it. I said, I said, what the F do you think happened? He hit me with everything but the kitchen sink.
All right. This is crazy because, like, in the course of my lifetime, I've crossed paths with quite a few people who were like legendary known street figures or gangsters or kingpins and stuff like that. From being childhood friends with Peter Rolock, I watched him grow into, the reputation that everybody knows of, from young boys. I was on Rikers Island in 1999 with the infamous Spanish Ray, Raymond Marquez, man. He's an old school New York gangster, man. Puerto Rican numbers man from Harlem, man. He told me out his own mouth he was a pallbearer at Bumpy Johnson's funeral. It was a homie, a Puerto Rican blood named Prophet from over by Parkchester area, like by Taylor and Archer and all that. And he was cool with Spanish Ray. And it was only because of Prophet that Spanish Ray started talking to me, and me and him got to kicking it. And I told him that my grandfather was a numbers man from Harlem back, like, in like the 50s or the 60s or something like that, which was his era. So we vibed out on that. And I picked up a few gems from Spanish Ray. Then, out in LA, I lived with T. Rogers. I went to San Bernardino County Jail. Freeway Rick Ross was in the next cell from me. We kept in touch through my whole biz. So I've been around some people that had like heavy names. Peter Shue is one of them. I just didn't know that this is who and what he was, right? Now, that excerpt that I took out the video, it reminded me a lot of myself. I told y'all before, man, I got back to New York at 14 years old. I didn't have no older brothers. I didn't have no older male cousins. My only male cousin, if you like a real up north nigga doing state time, you're going to know this guy right here in this picture, more than likely. That's my real blood cousin. He passed away recently. But if you know him, you know that nigga was always up in the mountains. So, like, I didn't have nobody to bag me up. You know what I mean? Like, in River Park Towers, if I'm walking across the street, it's me, Ralph Mooch, and Yancey Bowman. Well, Ralph and Mooch got two older brothers, the twins, Donald and David. They're damn near grown. Nobody's going to mess with them. Yancey Bowman had three older brothers, Dana Bowman, Sean Bowman, Jeff Bowman. Nobody's going to mess with him. I didn't have nobody. It was just me and my little sister. So if they were going to snatch anybody up and throw him up against the wall and beat him up, it was going to be me. That's how I came up. So that excerpt I showed of the Peter Shue clip is what really caught my attention and made me think back to the time, when I encountered him. So here's the deal. My mom used to work for the phone company in New York for like 25 or 30 years, whichever one of them it was. And she retired, bought a house down south. But the duration of her time, she worked in personnel down at the main office building on 42nd and 6th. She was there from when it was New York Telephone, when it was 9X, when it was Bell Atlantic, up to when it was Verizon. She went through all those transitions and retired from Verizon. She was hired from New York Telephone and retired from Verizon. That's how long my mom worked for the phone company on 42nd and 6th, Avenue Americas, right? I even had a job there. Like my sister, several of my cousins, my mother would just give us the job. Like, you know what I mean? Like, pretty much for real. I worked out of the garage on 91st Street in First Avenue in Harlem, right? Okay, so here's the deal. When I first got back to New York at 14 years old, my stepfather at the time was a guy named John from Manhattan, John Wilkins, man, great guy. He passed away, man. He was a great role model, great leader, you know what I'm saying, hardworking dude, man. I ain't got nothing bad to say about John. I ain't got nothing bad to say about him. You know, but he grew up in Manhattan, not in Harlem, but in Manhattan, right on the edge of Harlem. So he grew up with money. He came from a family with money. So John always had nice cars and fur coats and all that. So he was cool with all of the kingpins around Harlem, from partying at the Red Parrot and all these other spots. He knew everybody, but he wasn't really in the street himself. But he looked like a kingpin, you know what I mean? But John worked at the phone company, as did my mother. The phone company had a huge basketball tournament. I don't know if you guys know anything about it, but there were thousands of employees. This is pre-cell phone era, guy. Everybody had a house phone, y'all. Listen, gang. Everybody had to have a house phone. Nobody had a cell phone, gang. All right, now, check it out. They had a big basketball tournament for all of the telephone employees companies citywide, all 5 boroughs, right? Now, each borough might have like 4 or 5 different garages. You know what I mean? It's deep, so there are a lot of teams. It's like a whole league. And because it was so big, each team, of course, would have some ringers. They would have 2, 3 guys on the roster that they would say, you know, this guy, you know, he loads the stapler or something, put it on the paper, some bull crap, you know, give him some nondescript job title, trash can emptier or something to put it down. Like, so this guy who's actually really good at basketball can play in the basketball tournament and help their team win the championship. They got ringers. Now, Peter Shue was a ringer. I didn't know he was a ringer because he played on a different team than my step-pop's team. So he's just one of the guys on the team to me. I thought Peter Shue was a telephone company worker. So we're at one of the games one day. They're playing against my step-pop's team. Now, years later, I will play. You know what I mean? So this is like when I'm young. I'm young. This starts with me and Peter Shue, like 14, going on 15 years old or something like that. I'm at the tournament, and Peter Shue is playing against my step-pop's team. And this is when I'm getting to the age when I'm starting to smell myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm getting into scuffles and altercations with dudes with hair on their face when I look like this, right? So, Peter Shue and I'm going up and down the court, and I start heckling him. I start talking trash to him real bad. You know what I mean? Because I'm going for the other team. So you know how you diss the team that your team is playing against. You know, I'm feeling like I'm some type of jive mascot for John and them team or something. Because, you know, I get to hang out at the practices with him. I know all the players. I know all the ringers. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you know, I'm thinking I'm down. You know what I mean? So I'm dissing Peter Shue. I'm going crazy. Every time he comes out, I go, yeah, you funny body shape, motherfucker. Yeah. Right? I'm going crazy on Peter Shue. So John looks at me and gives me the, and I'm like, what? I'm still going ham. Miss it. Yeah, you can't shoot. Yeah, that's why you're funny looking. You're half Chinese looking. And I'm going crazy on him. And John's telling me, yo, chill. Right? So after the game, we leave. And I'm like, you know, what was all the, yo, chill for? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why you was acting like, you know, that's my man. You know, that's Peter Shue. You don't do that. You know, that's Peter Shue. I'm like, what is a Peter Shue? Peter Shue? What the hell? What is, I never heard of Peter. What is a Peter Shue? You know what I'm saying? So this was like year 1. So now it's like 2 years later or something like that, or a year or 2 later or something like that. I just know it's not that same year, I don't believe. Because the first time I got into it, I think it was at a gym in the Bronx or Harlem. And this next time that I saw Peter Shue, I believe the gym was like downtown, like by Brooklyn Bridge. They used to get different schools, gymnasiums, you know. So this was in the school downtown somewhere. So I recognized Peter Shue from before, you know what I'm saying, from different games and whatnot. You know, I left him alone with the heckling or whatever, you know, but I still see him around. So this particular year, my cousin Ant was ringing. He's from Drew Hamilton. Now, for the real Harlem legends out there, y'all want to talk Harlem basketball. Everybody knows Rod Truman pardon me. Everybody knows Rod Strickland for playing for Truman before he went to, I believe it was Oak Hill Academy. But his freshman season, NBA legend Rod Strickland played for Rice High School in Harlem. His backcourt mate was a dude from Drew Hamilton projects named Anthony Poole. Ant put up 27.5 a game that year, his senior year. That's when Odin Polynice and all was playing. It was a big picture in a Daily News of Ant banging it on Odin Polynice. Ant was only like 6'2", 6'3", you know? But he could have went to the league, but he was real cool with Mario. You remember Super Mario Ellie, that won championships with the Houston Rockets and San Antonio Spurs? Well, Ant and Mario was real cool, and Mario had went to this school in Massachusetts called AIC. It was a D2 school. And following behind Mario, Ant ended up going to that school instead of one of the D1 offers that he actually had, and thought that he would make it to the league from the AIC school, and it didn't pan out like that, you know. But back to the Peter Shue. So now, it's another game played now. This is like me, like being around Peter Shue for several times. I know who's Peter Shue. I see him. I see how people interact with him. I've been around this guy for years. I'm in the street now. I'm doing what I'm doing, this, that, and the third. I'm trying to find a way to get on the team now. I'm ready to play. I'm dunking and stuff now, right? So it was after the game, me and my cousin Ant was talking. And that's when he finally told me who and what Peter Shue was. And it really messed me up. I'm like, wow. Like, I could have got us in some BS, running my mouth, being young, dumb, and ignorant, not knowing this man was really like a general in the streets. He had a lot of status in the streets. Like, he could have messed around and we could have not made it home from that gym because I was in no position, you feel what I'm saying, to really hold down a situation like that. Had he decided to crank it up another notch, say, you know what, I'm just going to slap the shit out of this little kid over here who just keep disrespecting me. You know what I mean? But he didn't, man. Thankfully for me, he was a more humble dude than that. Because when I tell you my mouth was disrespectful, I had a real disrespectful mouth when I was young. Like, you know what I mean? I was going hard on him, and he was going hard back. Like he was talking back hard to me too now. But fortunately for me, he took mercy on me because I was a kid and he didn't take it any further. You know what I mean? But shout out to Peter Shue. I wonder if he remembers his days being a ringer in a New York telephone company basketball tournament. And any of you young guys from Harlem, y'all born in like the late 94, 95 era, I got to be honest with you guys, man. If y'all need me to take a test, I'll take a test. If you don't know who your dad is, or you're like, you've been looking at your dad your whole life and you're in question and you're not sure if that guy is really your dad, I'll take a test for you. Because when I was working for the phone company, I was working in Harlem doing installation and repair, and I'd be knocking on doors 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. These young ladies would answer the doors in their t-shirts and their panties on, and I was so young and handsome, and I had my Ninex badge, and I guess they thought I had benefits. But while I was fixing their phone, they'll be fixing me some breakfast. This is true. But yeah, it's just crazy, like I said, that I had been around Peter Shue in that close proximity and been mouthing off to him all crazy as a knucklehead little kid, not knowing that this dude was an actual drug kingpin, and nobody around me took the liberty to tell me for like at least 2 years.